Hey, welcome to another episode of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness with host Dan Remley. Dan Remley is associate professor. He's a field specialist with the Food, Nutrition, and Wellness program at The Ohio State University. Dan, it's always a pleasure watching your different programs, and I really enjoy and learn a lot staying healthy.
Good. It's certainly important in this day and age, isn't it, to be healthy and have a healthy immune system. So
even though many of us have been staying at home, maintaining good, proper diet is extremely important.
absolutely. So we want to have a healthy immune system, eat healthily, get a lot of exercise, get enough sleep, be mindful of our stress. I think all of these things are really important for us.
And one of the things that you have always stressed is breakfast, having a good, balanced, nutritional breakfast.
It is important. It can be. Not, it kind of depends on your lifestyle. But for most people, breakfast is really essential to an overall healthy lifestyle, healthy diet. The three pillars we're going to talk about in terms of healthy breakfast are quick, flexible, and nutritious. So, Patrick, what do you think about this breakfast here? Is this something that you would like?
It looks very, very tasty.
Okay. It's there's some traditional breakfast items on there, like the egg and the toast, but there's a few non-traditional: the beans, the tomato, the mushrooms. So I guess maybe one of the goals too is for us to kind of think outside the box when it comes to breakfast. We don't have to eat the traditional breakfast foods in order for it to be healthy. So that'll also be sort of a common theme.
Now, I noticed that you have a tomato there. Did you fry the tomato?
This is not my breakfast per se, but it does look like it was grilled, actually.
It looks good.
So breakfast has changed over the years. So Patrick, I don't know. I grew up in the '80s, and I do remember sitting down before school, and my mom would have breakfast ready. A lot of times it would be cereal and some orange juice. But what were your breakfasts like growing up? Did they look like this picture here?
I would like to say yes, but primarily it was different kinds of cereals. Once in a while we would have toast. Once in a while we would have some kind of meat. But usually when I grew up, the weekends is when we had our most nutritional breakfasts with different items.
Well, this is it looks like it's from the 40s or 50s, but I think back then and 40, 50, 60 years ago, breakfasts were more of events. You'd sit down and actually eat at the table, and so that might be a luxury that some of us might not have today in today's world.
I think that's so true in the fact that we live in a hectic pace. When both parents are working, it seems that we don't spend enough time at breakfast.
Right, and so you can see on this table here, everybody's sitting down, and there's some place setting there with the spoons and the knives are all arranged perfectly. So yeah, this is breakfast has changed over the years, but the good news is that we don't have to sit down, and it's always good if we can sit down and have those types of meals, but they're not always necessary. And so we'll talk about breakfast, and specifically breakfasts that can be quick to eat, quick to prepare, are nutritious, but they're also flexible. So we can eat them on the go, or we can carry them to work, or that type of thing. So why is breakfast important? Well, breakfast is what it says it is. It's breaking our fast. And so when we sleep, we don't eat. Now, some of us do get up and we snack, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. If you have a snack, you might not be hungry for breakfast, and actually that's okay. the point is, if you're not hungry in the morning, you don't have to eat breakfast, or you could eat a little bit later on. But for most of us who we get, hopefully we're sleeping 7 or 8 hours, we get up and, we need that nutrition to get to kickstart our bodies, because we've been fasting, our blood sugars are low. So we need that quick energy. We do know that people that eat breakfast, who don't skip meals and skip breakfast, have more energy, have better are better at concentrating, have better memories. So the research suggests many benefits associated with eating breakfast. They've done studies with kids in school. The kids do better with schoolwork if they've eaten breakfast. Generally, people, when they've studied diets and nutrition, people that eat breakfast generally have better nutrition and nutrient profiles. They have better cholesterol levels, better dietary outcomes. And, they get, they basically have more energy, have more nutrition, have nutrients like fiber, and fiber is so important for our bodies, our health outcomes, and that type of thing. So,
just a quick question. You said it replenishes blood sugar. Why is that so important?
Well, blood sugar, carbohydrate in general, that's our body's fuel, right? So we take that glucose and our cells use it for energy. And so, when we have that in our body, we have the energy that we need to get through the day. So, Patrick, what does a quick breakfast mean to you? Does it mean a limited preparation? Does it mean dining and dashing? Does it have to be unhealthy? What do you think?
I know for myself that limited preparation, rarely will I ever cook anything. If I can pop it in the microwave, it's very, very quick and very, very easy.
But it doesn't have to be unhealthy necessarily. What do you think? Is this a quick breakfast?
I would say that it looks like it has oatmeal, it has fruit, it has fiber. I'm assuming some kind of cereal. So I would say yes.
Sure. So some people might say it's a quick breakfast. Other people might think, nope, a quick breakfast for me is a granola bar. I just wrap it, right? So here you have to get out the raspberries, you have to get out the milk, you have to get out the cereal if you're putting nuts on it. It's certainly healthy. And, compared to what we saw in our first picture there of the 1950s breakfast, this is certainly quick. But for some people, it might be a chore to assemble that. So it just kind of depends on your way of life and that type of thing.
One of the things, because of so many fast food places, individuals sometimes will stop at somewhere where they have breakfast and get different foods. To them, that's a quick breakfast also.
And you can eat healthy too at a fast food place as well, but it's easy not to eat so healthy. This is an interesting graph here. It shows consumer shift from carbohydrates to protein in the breakfast landscape, and how different breakfast foods have sold in the past, it looks like it's 5 years here. But you can see that a lot more people are buying things like yogurt, breakfasts that can just kind of be thrown in the microwave, like you mentioned, frozen or refrigerated types of things. But when you look at things like breakfast bars, cereals, pastries, there's the sales are kind of stagnant. So this is kind of an interesting graph of trends that we're seeing in terms of different breakfast foods.
Would yogurt be considered a good breakfast food?
It certainly can be. Some choices are better than others, and you really want to be mindful of labels. And so some yogurts are pretty high in sugar. So generally speaking, if something has 20 grams of added sugar or more per serving, that's pretty high. A lot of the yogurts might have 30 grams of carbohydrates, and that's from the added sugars. So that's something that you have to be mindful of. You want to read those labels and buy the low sugar yogurts, and they're available. So this also shows the average time eaten, or average time it takes to eat various meals. So the average breakfast time is about 12 minutes for Americans. The average lunch time is 24 minutes, and dinner is about 28. So our dinners tend to be longer, and our breakfasts are shorter in duration on average. So people are spending less and less time eating breakfast.
Do you think that that's because at breakfast time, we're in a rush to get to work?
Yeah, we're thinking about the day ahead of us, and we're trying to get out the door. Some of us like to sleep in. So, we don't like that sit down. We don't really have time for it. So what does healthy breakfast mean to you? Eating a variety of food groups like fruits and grains, protein, dairy, high in fiber, low in fat, sodium, sugar. It takes time to prepare. What do you think?
We are creatures of habit. And what works, sometimes it's very easy to get a cup of coffee and go out the door and then pick something up around 10 o'clock, if we're on an 8-hour work schedule. I would venture to say that variety of food groups is important.
It is. So that's one thing we'll talk about. If the more food groups you have represented, the more nutrients you have in your breakfast. But also we want to make healthy choices. So breakfasts that are high in fiber, low in fat, low in salt and sugar, those are healthier choices as well. Now, healthy breakfasts don't need to take a lot of time to prepare, so we'll talk more about that. So as I said, the more food groups that are on our plate, the healthier our overall breakfast will be. We want to choose whole grains that have lots of fiber. These will give us, that quick source of energy. Protein is really important because protein will satiate us. It'll help us become full, and we won't be hungry later on in the day. Dairy is same thing. It has protein, but it also has carbohydrates, things like yogurt and milk and that type of thing. And then fruits and vegetables have carbohydrates, but also vitamins and minerals that will propel us. Label reading is really important when it comes to choosing breakfasts, like when you're at the store. And a couple key nutrients that I like to look for when I'm looking for breakfast foods is fiber. The dietary fiber, having 2 grams or more per serving, that's really important. And as I mentioned, the sugars, the added sugars, you want to keep those below 20 grams per serving if you can. We want to avoid those added sugars, and then keeping our fats and sodium down as well.
Why is it important to keep your sodium down?
Well, some people are salt sensitive, and as we get older, we become more salt sensitive, meaning that the more sodium we consume, that raises our blood sugar and puts us at risk for hypertension and heart disease and that type of thing. So, yeah, we want to try to keep our sodium levels down, especially as we get older. Okay, well, the grains, very important. As we mentioned, grains are a wonderful source of carbohydrates and that we need for energy. And again, it's important to have the fiber. Fiber is important because it's good for our heart and our arteries and our cardiovascular system. It helps prevent those spikes in our blood sugar, and that's important if you have diabetes especially. So we want to choose those grains that are high in fiber. So you want to look for the whole grains. And when you look at those food labels, it's important, as we talked about earlier, that you want to look for 2 grams or more per serving. And the first ingredient should be whole grains. So oatmeal is a natural grain choice that is high in fiber, insoluble fiber. So that's really good for our cardiovascular system, but also it fills us up. It sticks to our ribs, right? So we eat those whole grains. That prevents us from getting hungry later on. Here's some great grain choices here. Some whole grain pancakes, some muffins. Bagels can be whole grain too. You have to kind of be careful of the multigrain. Multigrain isn't necessarily whole grain. So again, label reading is really important so that we know what's a whole grain and what isn't a whole grain. But there's lots of choices for breakfasts. Protein is very important, and protein, as I said, can help fill us up. Actually, when we consume protein sources, our brains actually stimulates our brains. Actually stimulates dopamine, which helps us feel better and can prevent hunger and that type of thing. So proteins are very important. Of course, protein is found in meats, but also dairy products as well. So most of us don't think about vegetables. We don't think of vegetables as being a breakfast food, but they do have so many vitamins and minerals, including fiber, that can help fill us up and energize us. So this breakfast here, ants on a log, used to eat this as a kid. It's actually very, very nutritious. It has 3 food groups. It has vegetables, it has fruits, and it has the peanut butter, which is a protein source. So that's an excellent idea for breakfast. Some other breakfast foods that you might not typically think of, included in your breakfast might be sugar snap peas, carrots. There's your ants on a log, your celery and peanut butter. Berries are a wonderful choice. Fruits. So again, just trying to think outside the box in terms of our breakfast choices. Yeah, bacon is, it's very, very high in fat. It's an okay choice every now and then, but doesn't really give us a whole lot of protein. It's really high in saturated fats and not that great for our cardiovascular system, but also very high in sodium. Turkey bacon is a little bit leaner, so you don't get as much fat, but you do still get that sodium, which can be a problem for hypertension. So a lot of these products here are pretty high in sugar, and a glass of orange juice, 8 ounces, might have as much as 8 teaspoons of sugar. The 2 Pop-Tarts there, you're looking at at least 20 grams of sugar right there, those 2 Pop-Tarts. That's about 80 grams of carbohydrate. So, that's equivalent to about 20 teaspoons of sugar. So,
what is the daily average of sugar that we should be taking?
Well, the recommendation is about maybe it just depends on the person. So it's hard to give a general recommendation. There isn't. Most of us should probably stick with it about 45. I mean, if you're an older adult, the recommendation's around somewhere around 45, 50 grams of sugar per meal, or carbohydrate. So carbohydrate that's simple sugars, but that's also starches included as well. So, the Pop-Tarts, if you eat 1 Pop-Tart, that's 40 grams of sugar, 40 grams of carbohydrate. So that's quite a bit. And so you just want to be very mindful and read those nutrition facts labels. The mochas and a lot of the beverages that you might get at a coffee shop, they're extremely high in sugar as well. So they're very similar to you might easily get 40 grams of carbohydrate, 60 grams of carbohydrate if you get a drink like this. It has a lot of syrup. And yogurts, as we mentioned, can be pretty high in sugar as well. So read those labels. So flexible breakfast, that means that we can eat them on the go, in our car, on the desk. We can eat them anytime, and they're pretty easy to make too. So smoothie is, a lot of people do like smoothies, and smoothie you can whip up in the morning pretty quick with a NutriBullet or a blender. You just need some yogurt. You can throw in some frozen fruit, maybe some frozen kale that gives you a little bit more nutrition, a little bit of maybe some fruit juice and milk, and easy to make, easy to take. You can take it and sip it in your car, that type of thing. But the important thing for most breakfasts is to really think about it, plan the night before. You can just reheat it if you want. So you kind of think about what you're going to do, get everything ready, and it's just really easy to assemble. You don't have to run around your kitchen looking for different things. It's right there, and you kind of have that peace of mind. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but if you aren't hungry, you can take something with you and just eat it later. And it's also important not to eat when you're watching TV. Really eat intuitively. So pay attention to your hunger and fullness. You don't need to be distracted when you're eating. And try thinking outside the box every now and then. And these are I like this. This is just some ideas for, I get in a kind of a breakfast rut. I don't know if you do, Patrick, but you eat the same things over and over. And so try to break up your routine if you can and try some different things. But these are some ideas that you might not have considered. Some oatmeal with almonds on top and dried cranberries. You get a lot of nutrients there, a lot of food groups represented. Whole wheat pita stuffed with hard-boiled eggs, so you get your grains and your protein. Leftover vegetable pizza. I always like pizza in the morning, but you get a lot of nutrients there. And then a tortilla filled with vegetables, salsa, low-fat shredded cheese. We talked about smoothies, even crackers. Whole wheat crackers with low-fat cheese or peanut butter. Those are just some ideas that you can try and try to break your breakfast rut.
I noticed that many of the food groups that you have, breakfast can be expensive.
It can be. I think that if you eat out a lot, though, it can be expensive too. So, to try to take some time and eat at home and prepare your breakfasts at home. And also, you do pay for convenience. So if you buy the sandwiches, like the frozen sandwiches, the frozen breakfast sandwiches, those are pretty expensive. I mean, they take, you can prepare your own things for a lot and be a lot more economical. Because we do pay for convenience. Yeah, very important to model healthy eating habits with your kids and grandkids.
Feeding them bacon is not a good idea early in the morning.
Well, certainly I don't. I think every food has its place in our lives, right? And we should eat foods that we like. It's ideal to try to make healthy choices whenever we can, as much as we can. So bacon, once or twice a week, it'll be okay. Don't try to use moderation. Stick with the serving sizes of bacon, and I mean it's not something that bacon is almost 100% fat, and fat also helps us absorb certain nutrients like vitamin D and fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D. So a little bit in our diet is not a bad thing, but we don't need too much. And essentially, bacon is full of saturated fat, which is not as helpful to our cardiovascular, our heart, and our arteries, and that type of thing. So, the more we can stick with those liquid oils, preparing food.
Well, you've always mentioned eat in moderation, and it's really something good to follow through. Hey, we're talking with Dan Remley. Dan Remley is Ph.D., associate professor. He's a field specialist with the Ohio State University in food, nutrition, and wellness. Dan, it's always a pleasure watching your programs and better understanding eating healthy. I'm Patrick Dengel. Thank you for listening, and looking forward to Dan's next program.